Statement of Grom Atherton. Mountain biking as a recreational activity is an attitude, a way of life, a method of connecting with a higher level of existence. But entry into this discipline carries with it an obligation to the unenlightened around us. Everyone who straps on the helmet and puts a foot to the pedal is expected to conform to a code of conduct and to accept a certain level of responsibility for their actions and choices. In my opinion, Nicky Kulshan breached that standard of care and should expect the consequences of that breach. I am a tenured professor of philosophy and psychology at Existential Sciences University, an online educational institution accredited by the states of California and Washington. The university offers graduate degrees in the arts and sciences, involving many traditional subjects in addition. A student can construct a designer degree focused on his or her particular interests. Individual studies programs are usually a small part of a college's curricula, but XU encourages students to explore this aspect of learning. Since the pandemic, our enrollment has exploded to over 50,000 students, more than the main branch of the University of Washington. My connection to XU commenced in 2010, shortly after it was formed. Prior to my employment here, I earned a Bachelor of Arts from Cal State, Ukiah, a Juris Doctor from the University of Idaho School of Law and a Doctorate of Philosophy from the Enlightenment Institute in Fairbanks, Alaska. After professorial stints in several traditional in-person universities, I decided that online education was the wave of the future, and time has deepened that conviction. Our philosophy department was one of the first to offer a separate degree in the ethics and practices of biking, psychology, although many schools offer degrees in recreation and its connection to society and the arts. My qualifications to teach psychology, in addition to education, include extensive high trail cycling experience and in-depth interaction with the mountain biking community. I have bombed some of the sketchiest trails on every continent, including Antarctica. I have lectured online on multiple subjects related to ethical mountain biking, including essential safety, multi-use etiquette and environment, respect for the non-human biome. My affiliations include 2 years as president of the International Mountain Biking Board of Governors and past chair of the United States Committee on Biking Standards and Practices. These organizations adopted the Code of Conduct and the Standards of Care, also known as the Rules of the Trail, that I will discuss and that are known to even the most casual participant in this sport. Kulshan should have been aware of these standards for several reasons. First, plaintiff purchased a top-line bike, 29-inch tires with full squish, a complete suspension with a front fork and a rear shock absorber. After 1998, all bikes of this manufacturer were shipped with a copy of the Standards of Care prominently affixed to their frames. You had to detach this document to ride the bike, and its contents would have apprised the plaintiff of these expectations. Second, the Extreme Pass Resorts website for permit purchases included a reference to these standards in its terms and conditions. I believe the reference is in paragraph 4 of Exhibit 5. In order to purchase a permit, Kulshan initialed an acknowledgement that these terms were read and understood. Finally, I have reviewed Nicky Kulshan's posts describing past mountain biking excursions. Some of these posts provide a link to the USCB Rules of the Trail website in, I believe they are called, retweets. It is difficult to believe that plaintiff would provide these materials to others without reading them first. When I was approached by the defendant's counsel to objectively review Kulshan's actions in this case, I advised them that I was reluctant to become involved in a dispute with a fellow biker. The attorneys assured me the resort was only interested in learning the truth whether or not the accident was solely the result of their actions, or was at least partially caused by the plaintiff's breach of care. In forming my opinions, I reviewed all of the statements provided by witnesses and the exhibits. I did not visit the accident site, because I was not retained until many months after the incident and there was no way to determine how much conditions had changed. It was disappointing to learn that the hole had been filled, and I've heard that it was one-dialed. That means impressive drop. I have been compensated for my time in this matter, not for the provision of any particular opinion expressed. Extreme Ski and Sport was advised that the fee would be $200 per hour for review and preparation of this statement and $250 per hour for trial time, and would be owed even if my opinions were not favorable to them. I would estimate that my total charges will be around $7,500, and these fees will be paid to me personally, not to the university. it will be necessary to use various slang terms in order to meaningfully discuss this incident, since this lingo is part of the zeitgeist of the modern mountain biking era. I will define these terms as I use them. For example, my previous reference to a sketchy trail refers to a course with features or sections so challenging that they make you think twice about riding them. This may be due to chunder, loose, rocky conditions, lots of baby heads, round rocks that are the size of, well, baby heads, or steep drops and difficult features. This contrasts to a skeezy trail, with paved surfaces and level segments. Of course, to bomb is to go fast, really raise the shallow readings. Because of the focus of my expertise, I will not express any opinion about whether the Extreme Pass Resort was deficient in its operation of snow machines or its construction or maintenance of any of its facilities. This declaration does include my opinion that the warnings posted on the trail were sufficient for bikers following their standard of care, for reasons that will be discussed later in this statement. In summary, Nikki Kulshan violated the standard of care expected of mountain bikers in 3 critical respects. First, the rules of the trail require bikers to yield appropriately to all other trail users in a safe manner and to never act in a way that scares animals, especially horses. Second, the plaintiff did not ride in control, instead operating the bike in a rash and inattentive manner. Finally, Kulshan did not meet the responsibility imposed on all bikers to learn the features and conditions of the trail before encountering them. One of the primary rules of the trail is to yield appropriately to other non-bike trail users. To be frank, mountain bikers are often viewed as interlopers on trails that were originally constructed for hikers or horseback riders. We are resented by these users, treated with disrespect by others. Dakota Booker's reaction to Kulshan's presence is the norm for encounters of this type. A reaction in kind to Booker's negative aura would be ordinary, human nature. The rules, however, require more. The Embod decided long ago to meet this hostility with kindness, with humility, with the patience and attitude of the Buddha and not the beast. Bikers are required to always let other trail users know you're coming, give a friendly greeting, anticipate other trail users as you ride around corners, yield to riders headed uphill whenever you're riding downhill, and always make every pass a safe and courteous one. These rules are separately emphasized for the presence of horses, the animal royalty of any trail. The animal is always right and should always be treated with care and respect. In addition to the moral basis for this approach, the result is also practical. A frightened animal can be both vulnerable and dangerous. The only thing that keeps animals safe from you is you. Because of this difference, Kulshan was mandated to give animals enough room and time to adjust to you, and use special care when passing horses and follow directions from the horseback riders, ask if uncertain. The plaintiff failed miserably in dealing with the horseback riders in the curves of this trail. One of the horses was in obvious distress because of the bike's presence. The appropriate action in this situation is to dab, or tap your foot, to stop the bike and then move to the side, unless the segment is so off-camber that you would slide off a steep slope. Next, follow the horseback rider's instructions, or just silently wait for the horse to pass. There are a few situations where rapidly riding past a group of horses would be the best approach, because that removes the irritant quickly. But the animal rider should make that call, not the biker. Getting into a dispute with Booker and buzzing through the horses created a dangerous situation. Did the incident with Booker contribute to the plaintiff's fall? Certainly. Nikki Kulshan would not have been at the top of a major step-down feature when the snow guns started if waiting for the horses delayed the arrival. And ugly incidents of this type create a negative energy penumbra, a karma that influences everything that happens to a rider for the rest of the trip. Could that cause the plaintiff to undercook the drop, land wonky and go endo, crashing over the bars? That is not for me to say, since my opinions relate to the standard of care and not to causation. Second, Nikki Kulshan failed to follow the rule of the trail that requires the biker to ride in control. Most of the trails we use are deliberately rough, curvy and filled with hazards. Some of those hazards are fixed, while others are transient or mobile. Speed, reckless or loose riding and inattentiveness are the primary sources of trail conflict and injury to riders and those around them. The presence of challenging conditions should be the expected, not the unusual. The ethical rider must ride prepared and ride responsibly. Be extra aware when riding a trail with poor sight lines and blind corners. That perfectly describes the Wonder Trail in this area. Control does not require a boring, slow ride. Master bikers can bomb through straights or toward major jumps. Tricks on the trail can include ratcheting, which involves the use of half-strokes to maneuver around obstacles without chainsucks or pedal strikes. Any good cyclist likes to take the time to practice little bunny hops on flat sections, or to jump small features called butters. The key is not a lack of speed or danger. Instead, the requirement is to keep the bike under the control of your body and mind at all times. Kulshan's behavior on May 18, 2019 ignored these requirements. The conditions faced shadows, rocks, up and down sections, even a major feature. These things do not create problems. The plaintiff's failure to write in a way that would allow a controlled response to these conditions was the problem. Continuing at the same speed while waiting for your eyes to adjust to shadow, a big no-no. Not traveling at a speed that allows you to observe an open drop that is there to be seen, that conduct is not excusable. This breach of the standard of care was tied to the third violation of the rules, the failure to be familiar with the trail, either by checking out the conditions in advance or by remaining alert and learning the path along the way. Riders not only expect that trails will be riddled with features, they welcome them. Those features dial in the ride, make the mountain different from the street and the velodrome. Every year, more landowners bar us from entering their properties, and many of them take this step because they are afraid of shalloonies like Nikki Kulshan. These riders go faster and harder than conditions warrant, or they can handle. They fail to observe anything but the readings they obtain on the monitoring app. Then after an injury occurs, they sue the landowner for encountering the things they sought. I don't use the term shalloony lightly, but that describes the plaintiff. Based on my review of the ride and the data downloaded, Kulshan engaged in dangerous driving in an effort to up the statistics for the social media platform users that monitor the plaintiff's activities. The hand gesture Booker observed is a classic shalloony sign-off, a kind of fist bump between the active thrill seeker and the virtual followers. Finally, a word about the signs displayed in Exhibit 6. The signs are unnecessary for any person who knows the standards of conduct. The orange triangular caution sign is a pictorial of one of the rules of the trail: bikers yield to everyone. And the brown sign's warning of difficult terrain isn't a warning to mountain bikers, it's an expectation, an invitation. Follow the code and be aware of your surroundings. That's all the signs need to say, and these signs provide that information. The combination of these violations definitely contributed to the plaintiff's crash. After reviewing Exhibits 2, I'll admit that the approach to the hole was somewhat deceptive and this feature would have been difficult to see. But every sharp rise and blind corner on a trail conceals a condition you may not be aware of. You either slow down or you act fearlessly, send it and take the consequences. This dialed attitude is in the ozone of enlightenment for this sport, and it is not a place for the tentative. A person in Kulshan's position as an influencer should embrace this philosophy, otherwise, don't put a rear on the seat. Slow or go, there is no third alternative. Anything else is a breach of the standards all bikers are required to follow.